so often I really, get the blues. I miss Canada and I miss living close to my family. And, yeah, I even miss winter sometimes. I miss being able to go skating on the Rideau Canal and finishing the day with a hot chocolate and beaver tails. But then I see things like this. Can you see? A lowest temperature of -33, yeah, that's when I don't miss Canada quite so much. I mean, it's not warm by any stretch of the imagination here, but I'm out with just a jumper and a sleeveless top, and I'm quite comfortable. I think it's about 7 degrees today, and for the past week or two we've started getting some flowers. So we've got daffodils, we've got little crocuses, we've got some what's a little white one, snowdrops I think, and it's just, you can tell that spring wants to start. Today's a bit grey, earlier it was quite sunny, but it's hard to say I want to be in -33 on days like today. I've given the camera a little bit of a additional mohawk hairdo recently. That should help it cope better in windy conditions, so it'll be interesting to see how it did with going outside. I figured it was worth getting before going to Edinburgh because I'll no doubt want to do some filming outside. Looks pretty cool too. Ooh. I might have been bragging about it being warmer than in Canada, but I have to say it's definitely not a warm day. I'm quite happy being indoors today. So let's get started. You're drooling all over. I'll be able to get started eventually. Did you know that in Japan there's a festival dedicated to broken needles? It's on February 8th in most parts of Japan, and it's part of the Buddhist culture. And I find it fascinating that they basically give thanks to the tools that have helped them so much, and at the same time pray for improved skills. I certainly pray for improved skills every time I have to start doing a something new that I haven't tried before. And I love the thought that, again, it's the not wanting to waste culture. It's the wanting to respect the things that have helped you mend, helped you make. And apparently they go into a temple and they take the broken needles and they kind of poke them into tofu or jelly and kind of give their thanks to their tools. Usually I don't tend to give thanks to my broken needles. I tend to swear at them, which is probably not great. But I just love the thought of giving a soul, giving a personality to all those tools that help you through your day. So quite a nice festival. I know I've got a few Japanese viewers, so I'd be curious to know whether you've ever taken part or whether it's something that's more traditional and doesn't happen so much, or if it still happens. So much of the Japanese culture just fascinates me. It all started when I was a teenager with my obsession with sushi. I find the literature, I find the architecture, I find the cultural norms, both the traditional ancient ones and the more modern day ones, just so interesting, so different, and so thought out in so many ways. So hopefully one day I'll get to go to Japan, and if I do, of course, I'll take you with me. Should be fun, but it's not on the cards for any time soon, sadly. So you can probably see it behind me. The Gemini is done. It's my only finished object for this week, but I'm very pleased with it. The front, the back, or the front, the back. That's the beauty of this top. It can be worn on either side, and I really like it. I've had to kind of battle with the yarn color a little bit because it was quite uneven. The first 50% of the skein was very color heavy. The second half of the skein was very light. So not as in a single loop half was bright and half was light, which is fairly common, but much more the first 50% of the ball versus the second 50% of the ball were completely different. So at the very top, I've got lots of brightness, and on one side there's a reasonable amount, kind of it all went on one side, while here it's very bright at the top and very light at the bottom. But I kind of worked with it, and I think it'll be very wearable and very comfortable anyway. I wanted to show it to you unblocked, but I am going to block it later today. It's already cat hair on it. So hopefully I'll be able to wear it next week. My aim was to finish it in time for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, because I'd like to take it with me and have it to wear. Though undoubtedly I'll end up deciding that it's too warm and wear something lighter, because I do get warm quite easily. So that is my only finished object for this week. I've made more progress on the 2 pairs of socks, so the stripy socks for Andrew in Knit Picks Felici, and the socks for me in Knit Picks Hawthorne Sportweight. So both of those are making some progress, but neither of them are done. However, I think I might be casting on some more socks later today. That's why I love Sundays. Sundays are days of possibilities and new things starting. So I think I'm going to cast on my Reasons to be Cheerful socks in that purple grapey yarn I was telling you about last week. In fact, let me go dig that yarn up. When I started organizing my stash 2.5 years ago, it was pretty much, this shelf was organized as a rainbow. So started with the yellows and orange at that end and carried through all the colours all the way to kind of the greens and the teals at that end. And it was great, but back then there was quite a bit less stash. So everything was a lot easier to organise. Now it's kind of filled up to the brim, and it's kind of started leaking onto the shelf above, which used to be mostly hand spun and kind of things that were already balled or caked and just needed to be used, either partial bits like this, or it's now just all mishmash mixed. So I think an intervention will be required fairly soon. I'm sure there's some stuff that isn't even on Ravelry, and there's definitely stuff where I haven't taken the pictures yet. So I think everything's going to come out and everything's going to get reorganized fairly soon. I've also got some plans to make my craft table and shelves a little bit better, so hopefully I'll be able to show you that fairly soon. I'm still looking for that purple skein that I want. I'm also looking forward to knitting with this. I mean, you pretty much need sunglasses just to work with this, but these were 2 skeins that I got during on the day of the Stephen West workshop, and I want to put possibly a neutral colour with that and make a 3-coloured shawl. I think that would look great. No, that doesn't go there, that goes here, and that goes there, and I'm pretending it's still organised. Oh, that could be it. Okay, so this might be the one I use for my Reasons to be Cheerful socks. It's, I mentioned it last week, it's Araucania Multi, and when it arrived it was mostly neutral colour, just undyed, with a splotch of blue, a splotch of red, and it really didn't do it for me. I don't know, must have been quite different from the picture that I'd seen. So I dyed it the first time. It still smells of Kool-Aid very lightly. I dyed it with Kool-Aid the first time, and it just looked rubbish, but it smelled like fruit. So then when I finally got a stash of acid dyes, that's when I dyed this just kind of a soft purple on top. So you can still see the fact that here was probably where the red was before, and there that would have been the blue, and then in the in-between colour is just where it was natural coloured underneath. So I think these are fairly sturdy. Don't know if it's merino or if it's BFL. It feels like fairly woolly, and then a reasonable amount of nylon. So Reasons to be Cheerful will be made in these. So as you can see, I've still got quite a bit. I've got 2 skeins, and I've got another more than a half skein left after making my Gemini. So I think I've used 2.5 balls, which means I've got enough of the same yarn to make a second Gemini if I wanted, but I think this is probably going to be gift hats and things like that. Maybe a little bit of brioche could be fun. one final thing before I leave the stash. Last year I went to a car boot sale. So I guess to my American friends that would be either a yard sale or, you know, where everyone takes all their stuff and it's all in one big field and you get to go around and look at everyone's tables and look at all the rubbish they're trying to get rid of. But there was one lady who was selling yarn, and a non-knitting friend said, "Come and have a look." And I just thought, that's going to be piles of rubbish acrylic and leftover bits. But no, she was selling tons and tons of Manos del Uruguay. And she said to me, oh yeah, 50p per skein. And she kind of mumbled, "Oh, I know I should probably charge more, but I can't be bothered." So for £4, which is, I guess, not even $6, I got what I calculated to be about £120 worth of mostly Manos del Uruguay, some tiny bits of it, but still enough to make some really lovely stuff. Some of it was the cotton yarn. I'm being attacked by the yarn. Some of it was the cotton, or kind of cotton wool blend, and some of it was this lace weight, baby alpaca, silk and cashmere. So, I mean, this for 50p is one hell of a find. So do keep an eye. Don't be too cynical about what you might find in a car boot sale, because those were real gems. I'm sure I won't ever find something like that again, though. And this one's my little guardian. She keeps my stash safe. She used to hang on the door of the cupboard, but the cat's got a little bit too curious about it, so now she lives in here. Last week I mentioned that I couldn't wait to cast on my Reasons to be Cheerful socks with this yarn, and I mentioned that there was a 25% discount code. I was completely wrong, and that code was pretty much already done by the time I published the video. However, Rachel reached out to me and offered a code for you lovely viewers. So if you go and choose the pattern in Ravelry, and as you check out you put in the code along the lanes, you'll get 25% off on the socks pattern. So you'll be able to join me. It won't be officially a cal, because really I think everyone's got tons of knit-alongs going on, and I think it's just for fun. It's just such a beautiful pattern. Come by Ravelry or leave a comment here on the video and let me know you've started, and we can just hang out and work on our lovely socks. Also, while I've mostly made my socks 2 at a time, I'm starting to look at patterns of socks that aren't exact matches. So, for example, Cookie A has quite a few patterns where, let's say on one foot, you've got a pattern or design of some sort on one side, and then it's on the other side of the foot for the other one. So that kind of breaks my brain, and I don't think I would be able to do both at once. So I have bought this week these Hiya-Hiyas. Now have a look at these. They are quite the other extreme from my meter long, so it's 100 centimeters usually when I do 2 at a time, because you need to have enough cord to go around. Now these are teeny tiny, and theoretically you can knit a single sock in the round. I've never used these. They are 9 inches, and I got the 2.25mm, which is kind of the size I use the most for sock weight socks. Anything that says 2.5mm, I'll probably use 2.25, because I've found that usually in order to get gauge on any pattern, I need to go down at least 1 needle size, sometimes 2. So I think I might give these a try, but they are terrifying because it's just such a short needle. The needle is only this long, and then the cable's in the middle, so that's for a total of 9 inches. I'll have to let you know how it goes, but if you've got experience, if you've ever used these and loved them or hated them, I don't mind the investment just in order to find out, but I would be really curious whether it's something that other people enjoy or deeply despise. Another experiment for me. Now, how long is it going to take me before I lose these needles? They're so tiny, they'll have to live in their bag. Believe it or not, I have no new stash acquisition in terms of yarn or fibre this week. I got those tiny little needles that I'm looking forward to trying, and I have one new acquisition, which is a lovely moleskin notebook, but rather than being the normal paper variety that I've used for years for kind of note-taking in the office and scribbling. This one is the sketchbook version, so it's got nice thick paper that can cope with, not necessarily with markers, but with black pens. I got these pens around Christmas time. Andrew got me a really lovely set of Letraset markers, which I really like, but I felt I was lacking in black pens. So this is a set of 8 Faber-Castell Pitt Artist pens in various thicknesses, and also a couple of brush pen type things. And while I've had them for about a month and a half, it's only this week that I've really started enjoying them, that I've really been taking advantage of them, and I just really enjoy the hand lettering and the sketching. I'm still absolutely terrible at it, and I think people in the Ravelry Battle Against Boring chatter thread have seen a little bit of my frustration yesterday as I tried watercolor hand lettering for the first time. It's difficult when you see something in your head and you've got this idea and you know where you want to get to, but your hand does something else and you just don't have the dexterity to make it look like what you want it to look like. So it's going to be a lot more practice, but I've made myself a very important note. I usually hate writing on the first page of a notebook because it's that fear of the new notebook and I have to do it right. I have to do that notebook justice. So I started with this last night. Don't fear the sketchbook. It's an important reminder that any effort, any practice is all towards getting where I want to, towards getting the idea from my head onto paper and for it to look like I want it to. I feel like with knitting, I'm getting a lot better at that. So for example, with the Gemini, I know it doesn't have any, or I don't think it's got much waist shaping, but I knew I wanted more waist shaping, and I just kept trying it on and kept deciding, okay, so I'll take out 4 stitches there, another 4 there, try it on again. Yeah, I don't want to go too much thinner, great. Knit a little bit longer, great, start re-increasing. And I feel like it came much more naturally than when I first started knitting, where I felt like the decreases and the increases, I had to know what kind of increase or decrease to use, and I had to know exactly where to put them. But in reality, the designer's idea and the designer's body is different to mine, so it was like blindly following a recipe instead of modifying it to fit your tastes and fit what you like. So it's great to feel fluent with my knitting. Now I'd like to feel fluent with my sketching. And I think it's going to be a long and arduous road, but thankfully with the Battle Against Boring, I've got a goal and I've got a reason to do it. And talking about the Battle Against Boring, huge shout outs to everyone who's participating. You are awesome. You've made some lovely stuff. In particular, there's been one that was posted, I think yesterday, and was a frame filled with little buttons in the shape of a heart and Scrabble letters that spelt out family. I think that's just so sweet, and again, it's the kind of thing where hopefully the Battle Against Boring will allow us to get past just pinning something on Pinterest and saying, yeah, I'd like to make that someday, but instead really push us to make those things, to make them happen. And I'm just so pleased to see everyone do that. I do a little Snoopy dance every time something else gets posted, and no, I'm not showing you my dance. If you'd like to see what I've been pinning on Pinterest, you can find me, my username. Unfortunately, I couldn't use that Canadian girl, which is what I use on Ravelry and on some other sites, because Pinterest arbitrarily limits it to 15 characters maximum for a username, so that Canadian girl was one too long. So I'm Vero Peps there, so you can come and say hi. I love Sundays. Sundays are such a day of opportunity. After you've had a Saturday filled with house chores, activities, seeing friends, Sunday tends to be the day where you can just start a new project, do something creative, do something fun for yourself before the week starts again. or you can just sit on the sofa and relax. If you're into video games, there's quite a sweet video game that seems to have just come out. I think it's available for Windows, for PS4, and for the Xbox One, and it's called Unravel. Just like the Unravel festival that's happening next week in Farnham. I'm not attending this year, that was really lovely, but this year I've picked Edinburgh Yarn Festival in March instead. But back to that Unravel, the game. It's your character is made out of yarn and he unravels as he goes, and every so often needs to pick up balls of yarn to regrow himself. I've only seen the trailers, but it looks adorable and I've heard some pretty good things. If you're on Instagram, I'm fairly certain that the advertisers are targeting knitters, because I've seen the ad for Unravel pop up in my stream quite regularly. So it looks very sweet. We'll no doubt have a go, if not this afternoon, hopefully in the next little while. But if you've played, let me know what you think. Pop a note in the comments, I'd love to hear. And hopefully by next week I'll have tried it and I'll be able to give you my own feedback. But it does look very cute. I should have mentioned, if you're interested in trying hand lettering too, there's this lady called Nicole who is running a kind of free class that you can take at your own leisure, and I found it by I think by looking on YouTube, but she has run the course on Facebook. So if you look for Nicole Designs, you'll find the class that I've been trying to take, and that's one of my attempts. She provides all sorts of practice sheets which have just in very light grey the characters, and then you can just practice and do them over and over again to try and just get your hand comfortable with the brush lettering, where it's usually thick stroke on the way down, light stroke on the way back up. And let me tell you, it sounds simple, but it's so hard, it's so tricky. It's one of those things where I was saying my head knows what to do, but my hand's doing something completely different. Just thought I'd give you a tip if you fancied that kind of class as well. So this wraps up this week's show. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for hanging out, and if you've enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like button, and I will see you next week with more knitting, more crafts, and hopefully a little bit of a room reorg over here. So bye bye, have a lovely Sunday and lovely Valentine's Day.